Well, hello, Melissa Wiley.
Hello, Julie Bogart. How are ya?
Oh, I'm good. Hello to everyone tuning in. Welcome back to Brave Writers Podcast. We love seeing you or talking to you every single week. Thank you for all the shares and all the reviews and all of the love. I don't know about you, Melissa. Do you hear from our listeners? Because I do on a regular basis. They're telling me what was meaningful, how they applied what they learned, and it just means a lot that you take the time to tell us.
It does mean a lot. I get emails and they just warm my heart and make my day.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing with your friends. You know, our goal is to make your homeschooling life, your parenting life, your writing life more livable, more effective, something that you can rely on. And so it means a lot to us when you tell us we're hitting the mark. But Melissa, you were going to tell me a story about something that happened with writing and your son, Stephen. I'm curious.
Well, talk about letters that warm the heart. Stephen is amazing at writing letters. Stephen has intellectual disability and autism, and he has a very unique way of communicating. His manner of expressing himself in writing is much more detailed than he'll say in person. So you really need to be Stephen's correspondent to get like the full picture of who he is. And when he was much younger, I know I made some offhand comment at one time or another, like he was talking about some product, you know, that we ate, some kind of cereal or something. And I was like, oh, you know, you should write the company and tell them. And I showed him how to find customer service contact info on labels. I had no idea what I was starting. He writes letters to companies. And so I got this phone call. This is the story I wanted to tell you. I got this phone call the other day, and it was from UPS's corporate headquarters. And it turned out that Stephen had written UPS a letter praising their delivery services because mail delivery and package delivery, that is his special interest. And so he wrote them a letter telling them how great he thinks they are. And I guess this got passed up the chain to somebody in corporate who looked up the return address and saw that it was linked to my phone number from some contact number for, you know, some order in the past. And so she called me, lovely woman named Jeanette called me, and she said, Stephen's letter, it made all of us cry. It moved us so much. And we would like to send him a present. And she just wanted to make sure it was okay with me. And so my son is about to get a UPS delivery from UPS.
I mean, is he going to lose his mind? That sounds like the most amazing outcome for the person that he is. Did they tell you what the present is? Is it going to be UPS swag?
I don't know what it's going to be. She did ask, like, is he allowed to have sweets? You know, I think probably from his letters, she may have thought he was younger than he is. And that was why she was checking with me. But okay, so just like a lovely gesture on their part warms my heart for...
I mean, all kinds of heartwarming happening right now. So put a pin in this because I guarantee you listeners are going to be like, but what was in that package? So right. We are going to have an update when that package arrives. And I want clear notes and good memories. And we can tell how Stephen responded. Just for everybody who's curious, how old is Stephen? Did you say?
Stephen is 21 years old.
21. Okay. Awesome.
Yes.
But he's been doing this for a long time, right? He's been writing these letters for a long time.
Years and years. I think he might have been 10 or 11 when I made that suggestion. It was so like something you say when you're just standing in the kitchen. Like I did not know where it would go. And he has gotten, I think companies don't get very many like praise letters.
No.
And this is an important like life pro tip, I think. You know, people will write to complain. But I mean, I don't do it. I don't like write and be like, ooh, that barbecue sauce was delicious. I think I'll write the company and tell them so. But Stephen does. And they always send something back. So we get we never have to pay for barbecue sauce like for the next 10 years.
Oh my gosh. Is that right?
Yeah. Like the coupons are epic, but even more so, okay, you know the skincare company Paula's Choice?
I don't, but okay.
I have ordered a couple of products from them for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And 5 or 6 years ago, Stephen wrote them a letter and he was praising them on their rapid service because, like, I had told him I placed an order and it arrived 2 days later. He was so impressed. He wrote them. Well, they sent back a handwritten thank you note and they had looked up my order. And they said, Stephen, we noticed that your mom likes these products. They sent full-size products of everything I had ever bought from this company. And they said, Stephen, we thought you might enjoy our men's care line. And they sent full size of the whole line.
Okay, first of all, there are so many levels to this that I love. And I'm sure our audience is already doing this calculus without my help. So first of all, I love this idea of empowering a child to write to a grown-up reality. And I love that it involves stamps and envelopes and paper. Like this is, a truly lost art. It's something when we were kids before the internet, I remember wanting to collect stickers. This was a big thing in the 70s. So we would write to like an oil company and they would send us their stickers. We wrote to Winds and they would send the stickers and then you put them on your bike or your notebook or whatever. There was this transactional experience of being a child, reaching out to this big, invisible, no face company and having a human being respond in kind.
Right.
So this idea of empowering kids to turn companies into human beings through letter writing, such a lost art and such a homeschool thing to do. So let's just start there. What would be ways we could actually encourage this practice without making it transactional? Like, well, if you write them, we'll get more barbecue sauce. Like we don't want to.
Right. So with Stephen, once we realized his interest in letter writing, and he writes friends and family as well.
Darling.
In fact, my mom just told me that my Uncle Ray, who is in his 80s, was just asking like, oh, I haven't had a letter from Stephen in a while. Because Stephen writes a lot of people. And I was like, oh, you need to send Uncle Ray because his letters are personal and wonderful, and they're very meaningful and special to people. There's very little news that I can tell my parents that they haven't already heard from my son's letters. So how do we facilitate this interest once we recognized it? Well, I made stationery kits for Steve, and I started making them for my other kids too, so that everybody always has like a box of thank you notes and there's stamps. And we'll get the USPS catalog to look at like the new stamp releases. And we always order some. Getting stamps in the mail is funny to everybody. It's a little crazy that you pay shipping to get stamps from the post office, but we do.
That is hilarious.
We love the post office. We'll support them. So supplies, making it easy. It's so in keeping with the principles that we've talked about with so many other subjects, right? Or
Yes.
activities. Make it accessible, make it easy. And you can do it when kids are really little.
You can. In fact, one of the things that was occurring to me while you were talking is this would be an activity that you could do instead of your free writing practice some weeks, right? You could just go ahead and choose to have your child write a postcard or send a good job note to Cheerios, right? Like,
yeah,
actually empower them. You might even say, find a product this week that you want to give a positive review to, and we will find the address and you can send a letter and see what that feels like to send an actual handwritten letter, not typed, but handwritten.
Right.
Where people will read that handwriting. And you know what? It's okay, by the way, if there are a few spelling errors or few punctuation errors. People at those companies will be endeared. They will not be judgmental.
Exactly. You can think about how you would feel if you got a letter from a child.
That's right.
And it was, like, Mini Wheats is my favorite cereal. A lot of these companies have written back by hand themselves.
Incredible.
And I have noticed it tends to be the smaller companies where you get that personal response. The Tillamook cheese company here in Portland, they sent Steve, they're one of the ones who actually sent a box of swag. We have like a, I don't know, Tillamook t-shirt and a Tillamook spatula and a Tillamook cutting. They sent a cutting board, like a cheese board.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so obviously, so the first level is just the writing and just sort of that effort to find something praiseworthy, to put good energy out into the world for children, to make a big company into a human being instead of it just being this invisible, impersonal force in the world. But then also the opportunity for that reciprocity is absolutely thrilling for children. The thought that they might get a card back or a sticker or some kind of acknowledgement. Don't set the expectations too high. Some companies will ignore those notes, right? Isn't that true?
Yes. I was going to say, I wouldn't even tell them, and maybe they'll send something back. Just have it be an act of sending some love out into the world. And if they do, and I would say, most companies send coupons. Some of the biggest corporations will send just a form letter with no coupon even. That's so funny to me.
That is funny.
But it's like you're doing the good work of putting goodwill into the world by letting somebody know that you appreciated a thing. And so it isn't about the reciprocity.
That's right.
Icing on the cake.
And it's also an opportunity for kids to do handwriting that has some kind of real purpose. You know, a lot of times kids will say, I'll never use handwriting. Well, here's an opportunity to actually execute beautiful penmanship to the best of their ability and to send a real letter that requires a stamp. Be sure you include a return address because otherwise they can't write back and thank you for this beautiful note.
Right.
But you could do that once a month or once a semester. I mean, you don't have to turn it into a weekly activity, but just knowing that this is an action that you can take with your children that involves writing, involves, you know, even learning like the letter form, which I think is so hilarious. That was such a big emphasis when we were kids in the 60s and 70s because no computers, right?
Right.
Most kids today, I remember when I was showing my kids how to fill out an envelope and they were like in awe, you know, it just never occurred to them that they'd have to learn how to do that. So using this as a real world opportunity to learn a little bit about the letter format, how to address an envelope, where the stamp goes, right? All of that.
Yep.
What a great idea. I love this so much. You know, when I wrote Help, My Kid Hates Writing, I wondered if people who were familiar with my work would feel like it was too familiar, that perhaps it wouldn't have the same impact as it would for people who didn't know anything about Brave Writer. But what I found out by reading the reviews is that even Brave Writer fans, even parents with kids who love writing, found new strategies and ideas within my book to help them be successful writing coaches. Here are some of the feedback that I've received, some of the reviews that I wanted to share with you. One reviewer said, another gem of a book by Julie. She always feels like an ally, not only for the home educators, but for the kiddos. This book has solid strategies to help soften the writing experience for kids with the guidance of parents who themselves may need a mental makeover in what writing even is or can be. Another reviewer said to me, I can't say enough about how wonderful this book is. It's well written, which is good for this type of book, but it's also so useful. It makes it fun to write. And then maybe my favorite review said this book was heartfelt, insightful, actionable, and exactly what we needed. Julie challenges you to think in new ways and encourages you to be the guide your child needs on their language arts journey. Honestly, that was the motivation to write this book. I want you to feel that you can give your children the soft landing pad they deserve as they flex their wings of self-expression. I show you how, I give you great tips and strategies and lots of narrative examples. Check out my new book, Help, My Kid Hates Writing. Go to juliebogartwriter.com or any place books are sold.
When my youngest was maybe 10, 11 years old, we lived about 6 blocks, like the short blocks, from a corner mailbox. And he had this little messenger bag, and he just Stephen would write some letters, and Huck would stick them in his bag and write to draw. Like there was something extra special to them of putting it in the official blue mailbox. So that was you can find, additional ways to make the experience really exciting for young kids.
Yes.
And Stephen chats with he found a secret to our mailbox in our house that I didn't know existed because the mailman showed him. It has this little compartment that he can put outgoing mail in that we didn't know was there. So the discovery just goes on and on.
Indeed, it does. He loves the mail so much. Oh my God.
People with autism often have a special interest, right? A topic that they go deep, deep on. There was a point where if we ordered something from Amazon, Stephen knew which warehouse it would ship out of based on what the item was.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
This was when we lived now that we're in Portland, there's a big Amazon center here. So it kind of all comes from there. But in San Diego, we would order, I don't know, whatever, toilet paper. And he'd be like, that ships out of Kentucky.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. I love this so much. The other thing about having a little stationary center is that you can stock it with interesting kinds of papers to write on. I was just in Florence, Italy, and one of the things they're known for is their little fleur-de-lis and kind of this Renaissance looking paper that come in these. You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. I mean, I bought mine in Florence, but literally this exists here. It's like a little pouch, 2 pockets. One side has the envelopes, the other side has the cards. But the cards are about the size of a postcard. So they're not super big and they're sturdy. So writing on not just paper, but these little sturdy cards that have decorative edgings, and sometimes they are even gold inlaid a little bit, or they might come with one of those, candles that you can drip the wax and stamp it and close. Just those little extras,
yes,
are an invitation to practicing writing. And you might even make a list with your kids of people or organizations they can write to, so maybe they want to write to an aunt or an uncle who lives far away, or a cousin. And as you pointed out, everybody elevates the value of a letter over an email.
Yes. An email feels kind of like work.
Yeah. Or even just transitory, you read it and you never see it again.
Right.
People save letters. They put them in files. They keep them. I was talking with a friend of mine that I knew in junior high through Instagram. We rediscovered each other. And she's like, I still have your aerograms that you wrote to me while I was on a kibbutz in Israel in 10th grade. I was like, no, you don't. She's like, I do. And she took pictures and sent them to me. They were as cringeworthy as could ever be. I wish I had never reread them. I had no idea it was that person. But she thought they were adorable. She's like, oh my gosh, Julie, I love these. They're such a time capsule of our friendship, right? So that's the thing about written words.
Yes.
And mail is precious to people. They love it.
And the feeling of seeing a friend's handwriting on an envelope. When we were moving to this house 2 years ago, I found a bag of letters from college, and seeing my friend Chrissy's handwriting, it just gave me this warm spike of joy.
Yep.
I still haven't sat down to reread those letters. She has all of mine. There was a special time that we were summers just back and forth firing them off, or right after we graduated. There's a whole record of I was in grad school and she was working, and there's people in our lives who are letter people. And then I think there's people in our lives who are but don't know it yet.
Well, and the thing is, this doesn't have to be a practice they adopt for the rest of their lives.
Right.
But it might be a fun thing to do for a season, right? And it's maybe more interesting than just requiring thank you notes after the holidays, right? A lot of us, the only time we get our kids to write a letter is to thank grandma for the new bike, right? But if we could actually invite our kids to think of other times that sending a note would be meaningful, then we're giving them a reason to handwrite and a purpose that would boost their self-esteem, right?
Yes.
They could, one group that literally loves letters are very old people.
Yes.
So if you've got great grandparents in your life, people in their 70s and 80s, they love mail. They grew up with mail. A lot of them live in places where they're somewhat away from family. Getting a letter means a lot. So that is a place that you could actually also look to send mail.
And here's how you can facilitate that for your kids. Make it easy. Print out some address labels for those people.
Nice.
And also, we always like sort of custom make just on, printer labels, but we make special ones for Stephen. And then my dad took this on. It's really special. My dad's been doing it for Steve for years. He just every year for his birthday sends a sheet of address labels with like my parents' address, my sister's,
wow,
my niece, my aunts and uncle, like anybody in Stephen on that side of the family that Stephen might be writing to. All he has to do is peel off a label.
Oh, that's
And then
cool.
my parents also give him new stationery supplies every year for Christmas. So that has been just an easy way to make it happen.
Amazing. My grandparents gave stationery every year, and I always looked forward to it because they lived in Chicago. I lived in Los Angeles. And by getting stationery, it was always an invitation. Of course, I'm a writer. I love writing, but it was like so much fun to have different decorations on the paper for me to look at, to work around with my penmanship. Yeah, I loved all of that. And I know things have changed. I'm not trying to say we should go backwards only to letter writing. It's fine to do a video call to thank a grandparent for a birthday present.
Right.
I'm not saying not to do that. I'm saying create an opportunity to also do this once in a while.
Yes, yes. The kids who take to it will let you know that they want to do more.
That's right.
Right. And
that's right.
For everybody else, it's an experience to have. As you were talking, Julie, I was having so many ideas about things that I can think of from through the years that have worked for us. I think on a recent episode, we talked about watercolor painting, and I said that I would buy like big sheets of watercolor paper in bulk because that's cheaper.
Right.
And then cut them up into postcard size. And kids can paint, especially really young kids, can just paint on one side, and then you can write a letter, like a little message, or even write it on another piece of paper and glue it to this little postcard that you've made. They sell postcard stamps. So postcards can have their own special, type of postage. And you can, you can get old stamps, often very cheap. I get them every couple of years. There's this wonderful guy I'll have to see if I can find his link and put it in the show notes. He has a website that looks like it was made on the first day anybody could make a website. I think his name is Murphy.
Was it GeoCities?
Probably. It is the most basic website known to man, and it is delightful. I think what he does is he goes around to estate sales and, buys up people's stamps. And it'll be in, the 1 penny, 3 cent, 12 cents.
Oh my gosh. And those still work? Those are still...
Yeah, they still work. You just have to look up what current first class postage is for a letter, and you do them. There's your math.
You do the math. Our Ace Hardware has a USPS inside of it, a little post office, and they sell all the varieties of stamps. And that would be fun to do with kids too. Take them in and let them pick, do they want the fall trees? Do they want the anime? Do they want, right? Like the sports hero, like there's always a variety. There's often, Marilyn Monroe or somebody famous from the past. And that adds a little bit of intrigue as well. So here's what I'm picturing from this inspired episode. I am picturing people looking at the boxes of cereal their kids are eating out of. They are collecting addresses from obscure companies like Annie's Mac and Cheese or Chex, right? And then they're making that as a little list. They are collecting some interesting either cards or papers to write on. They've got pens and pencils of different weights. They're dropping by their local post office and picking out pretty stamps, or they're ordering from whatever company you're mentioning now. And then everybody's sitting down on a Friday and they're picking someone to write to, whether it's a relative, a friend, or a company.
Yes.
And then they just see how it goes, see what it feels like to put your words in your own writing and mail them out into the world.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you travel, you can collect postcards, or hotels often have stationery in the desk drawers. So check that out. You could, again, if you have a kid who kind of gets into it, getting them their own monogrammed stationery is a really special gift.
So special. And in fact, we have a link inside of our bookshop on Brave Writer called Tools for the Art of Writing. And we've got some ideas in there to help you, kind of create like this writing station that would inspire kids to write. Melissa, thanks for a fabulous topic. This was so unexpected and so much fun.
Well, it jumped into my head when I got that call, and we're all in suspense to find out what Stephen's special little package will be.
And that means, my friends, you all must tune in to future episodes for the exciting conclusion to the UPS mail story. Oh, thanks, Melissa. Okay, that's another Brave Writer episode in the books. Thanks for joining Melissa and me today. We love it when you leave us reviews, when you send us comments via text message. We read them all. We also couldn't do this show without our fabulous production team at Nova, or Jeanette Hall, the Brave Writer team member who handles all those administrative details you know nothing about. In the meantime, we hope that you have a fantastic week. Keep going, think well. We're rooting for you.